Hello and welcome. Let's take a look at our top story this hour. The winter will be over soon, but the war rages on between Russia and Ukraine. While some intense fighting is going on in the eastern region of Donetsk, Ukraine seems to be gearing up to be more offensive. President Volodymyr Zelensky says that 2023 is a decisive year and has once again urged its Western allies to send more weapons to counter the Russian aggression. On the ground, heavy battle fighting continues. Now, Russia claims that it controls the salt mining city of Soledar after days of relentless fighting, according to Russia. Capture of Soledar would make it possible to cut off Ukrainian supply routes to Bakhmut, which Moscow is trying to capture, has been for months. However, Kyiv has refuted Russia's claim and said that the fight is still continuing. Russia's defense ministry has released these latest images from the frontline position close to the town of Soledar in Ukraine's Donetsk region. Now, Soledar, a town of 14,000 people, is currently under Ukrainian government control. For the Ukrainian military, retaining control of Soledar is vital for any possible advance towards Mariupol, which fell to Russian forces in May of 2022. Ukraine's State Border Guard Service released this video showing servicemen using drones and firing at what are mentioned as Wagner mercenaries in the area said to be near the eastern Ukrainian city of Bakhmut. Now, Ukraine's counterattack last year in Kyiv forced Russian forces to retreat and to rethink their strategy, according to the experts. The war would intensify once the spring season sets in, and it would present an opportunity to Ukraine to go on offensive from its current defending position. The US also promised weapons, which are increasingly lethal in nature, in its latest aid package to Ukraine. Washington also aims to deliver most of these promised weapons in the winter months before the spring to help Ukraine counter the Russian invasion. The latest aid package from the US includes Bradley vehicles, an armored carrier used to transport troops to combat and fire anti-tank missiles, which will be effective on the unpaved road once the snow melts in Ukraine. Along with this, the US is also sending Humvees, mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicles, and a large amount of missiles and ammunition. Germany has also agreed to send Ukraine a Patriot missile battery, a surface-to-air missile system, and a Marder armored personnel carrier vehicles. However, Berlin, on Poland's proposal to send German-made Leopard battle tanks to Ukraine, has put the ball in Poland's court after German Vice-Chancellor Robert Habeck has said that Germany should not stand in the way when other countries make decisions to support Ukraine. Meanwhile, Moscow is also gearing up to get more boots on the ground in the spring, as Russian President Vladimir Putin gave his backing to raise the upper age limit to 30 for citizens to be conscripted. Kremlin's plans to boost the number of Russian troops by 30% this spring. Now, for more on this, we're being joined by Professor Robert Bell, who is a professor of the practice at Georgia Institute of Technology. Thank you for being with us, Professor. Now, Russia has claimed that it is controlling the salt mining city of Soledar, but Ukraine disputes these claims. What is the latest there, and what would be the impact on Ukraine if Soledar is captured? Professor, I'm not sure if you can hear me. I'll repeat my question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I hear you now.
Right.
Well, the outcome of the Battle of Soledar is still being contested, at least in terms of facts on the ground. It seems that the Ukrainians are still holding some of the buildings, but the Russians have most of the city. The significance is, on the one side, that the Russians have shown that they can win a battle against the Ukrainians, and this is one of the first times. But beyond that, the town itself is not a strategic town. And we'll have to see if the Russians are able to finish the battle, and if so, then if they can pivot from that town to attack Bakhmut, which is their real objective.
Right, Russia is planning to send more conscripts to Ukraine, while Kyiv is all set to get heavy weaponry from the West. How do you see the war in the coming weeks?
I don't think there's going to be a change strategically in the war in the coming weeks. It's still going to be incremental gains one way or the other along the front line in the east and south. The real decisive battles will probably come much further into the spring or summer. And even then, this can be a war that may go on for many years.
Right, and Professor, do you think that the Ukrainian forces could be more offensive once they are armed with the promised heavy weaponry to Kyiv? And could this be decisive in the war?
The heavier weapons will help them in terms of maneuver warfare. But some of the challenges they're up against don't have much to do with fighting vehicles or tanks. For example, crossing a river where the adversary is defending on the other side. I think the long-range offensive weapons that the Ukrainians have asked for that would allow them to strike deep into Russia, and which the West is not providing them, at least not yet, those would be the kind of weapons that would have the most chance of making a strategic change in the war, but they would also be the weapons that would have the most chance of provoking an even more severe Russian retaliation.
Absolutely, Professor. Thank you very much for your analysis and valued insights there. WION, now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.